Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON Samstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Shri Radha Radhanath Ki, Shri Giri Govardhan Ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki, Sankirtan Yajna Ki, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We are reading this morning from Transcendental Diary of Harisori Prabhu, his experiences serving Srila Prabhupada. And I didn't realize, well, there's probably 80 pages. You know how long it would take to read 80 pages of 12-point single, whatever you call it, single-spaced text. And you got a couple of days, at least all day today for sure. So I didn't realize that I meant to summarize. I thought I was just meant to read. But so what did I do? I did a summary. How did I do a summary? Take a guess. I used artificial intelligence, actually. Seriously. And within like 5 seconds, or no, maybe 10, I had a summary of 59 pages, summarized in 4 pages. So, they haven't had this is just right at the end of chapter. So, let's see how it is. I think it's probably pretty good. I have some experience with these things. Namo Vishnu Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanande Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Nirvishesha Shunyada Vipassachari Chitarane Vanchikala Trubhya Chakri Sindhubhya Evachan Adhidana Bhavamebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. And my child, can you give this key to Mother Radharani? She's sitting back there. tell her there's no towels in there, so much of towels. Yes, so here we go, devotees. This is now from, well, a section of Transcendental Diary from July the 28th till August the 7th, 1976. Yes, and it's Prabhupada's visit to Paris and New Mayapur in France, of course. So let me just blow it up a bit here. Okay. So yes, the discussion, the description starts. Here we go. Right, it starts in, where does it start? New York. It starts in New York, and then Prabhupada flew from New York to Paris, and then they drove to New Mayapur, which it's a country ashram. It's a big, used to be, one sort of like a chateau, they would call it, kind of stately, old, and fairly big, fancy house. So anyway, the journey, and it's in central France, more or less, something along those lines. So, yes, so the journey begins then in New York, and there's a description which I actually read, the whole thing. On the same flight, there was one American. And not all Americans are the same, but some are kind of loud and prone to be a little, not very sociable, not very broad-minded. And this fellow was like that. An older man, not really old, probably middle-aged, sort of 40 or 50 or something. And Prabhupada and Hari Sori Prabhu were sitting, the two of them were sitting, already sitting on the plane in first class. And this man came by, getting onto the plane. Prabhupada and Hari Sori were already there, just sitting and waiting to take off. So this man came along, walking back through to the economy section, and he sort of leant over to Hari Sori, and he said in like an unpleasant way, Hari, Hari, Hari. And Prabhupada sitting right next to Hari Sori, and Prabhupada witnessed it. And it was, it was like deliberately offensive. But Prabhupada didn't respond. He just sat there, he looked at the man and just carried on sitting there. But Hari Sori really felt bad. He felt, of course he wasn't responsible for the man. It's just some miscellaneous person who happened along. But Hari Sori felt a bit of, you could say, responsibility, that here I am in my presence, kind of like in my watch, on my watch. Prabhupada has been offended and treated quite unpleasantly. But anyway, nothing else happened for the flight. Then they landed in Paris, and now they are proceeding through the airport to go to immigration to get their passports stamped. And the same man came along from behind, and it was clear he wanted to barge through, just push his way through, and just, knock the devotees out of, wherever they were walking there on the way to immigration. And he actually wanted to barge into Prabhupada personally. Harikesh was there. A third devotee, Harikesh, was there. And the man came up from behind, and before even Harisori and Prabhupada knew that this man was coming and what his intentions were, Harikesh intercepted him and sort of grabbed him, pulled him out of it was like on the same, heading straight towards Prabhupada, so pulled him to the other side and pulled him forward, and they walked past Prabhupada and Harisori, and the man was, speaking, using like bad language, really bad language, and speaking really things like this and that sort of thing. But Harikesh just dragged him away down the path. And so again, Harisori Prabhu was feeling bad that sort of like on my watch, you could say, and unaffected, even though he saw what was happening and heard everything. And even afterwards, Srila Prabhupada never mentioned the incident to anyone. It's the sort of thing, we as devotees, even if it was just done to us, not to speak of to someone like Prabhupada, we would tell the other devotees that what happened, sort of the latest bit of news. So anyway, okay. At the airport, there were like 50 or 60 devotees waiting to meet Srila Prabhupada with kirtan, garlands, and he was taken to the Paris temple. The devotees had a temple, it's a very small place. Actually, I never went there. But a small place, kind of roughly central Paris, not far from the very center. So they went there and had darshan of the deities, Shri Radha, Paris Ishwara. And Prabhupada gave a short, sort of like, not a speech, but just, he gave a talk, just expressing gratitude. Well, there was Guru Puja, and devotees were just flying high. And Prabhupada thanked them for the warm welcome and emphasized that here, within this world, one has to work very hard to get things done. Like a nice place of residence. They had decorated the temple, and it was all sort of done up very nicely. And Prabhupada noted that here in the material world, great effort is required to fix a place up and put in, paint things and put curtains and whatnot. But Prabhupada said that in the spiritual world, everything is provided automatically without work. Yes. You just desire. And so he encouraged devotees, stick firmly to Krishna consciousness. Krishna will personally supply your needs as long as you remain constantly engaged in his service. And he quoted the verse. How does it start? Anyway, Tesha Nitya Yuktanam Yogic Shemam Yadvahamyaham. That's chapter 9, verse 22 offhand, I can't remember. That's line 3 and line 4, but it's the verse in which Lord Krishna says, if the devotee is always focused on him and always absorbed in meditating on his personal form, then Krishna says, for such a devotee, I carry to him what he lacks, and I preserve what he has. So that was kind of the message of Srila Prabhupada there in that talk. I read through the talk also, so that was the basic message. Just keep engaged in Krishna's service. He will supply things, everything will get done very nicely by his mercy, by his intervention. The temple, should I even mention this, but anyway, was in a red light district. If you don't know what a red light district is, don't worry about it. Okay? It's just Shishi Radha Radha Shri Radha Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Yeah, not a good area, shall we say. But Prabhupada mentioned this, that I see, I've heard. This is where the temple is located, but Prabhupada didn't really seem disturbed. And also noted it's centrally located, so, it's okay. So then, that was the 28th, they arrived, and on the 29th they drove to New Mayapur. It's a 3-hour drive from Paris. It's actually a very beautiful place. And this chateau, that is the term they use in French, basically means sort of like a castle type of thing. Really nice place, I've been there a number of times. With 200 acres of farmland. Prabhupada was very happy about that. And he felt that, yes, it's a good idea to develop a real rural community, a rural project. Other times, we had here in Cato Ridge, on the way to Maritzburg, some of you might be familiar with the area, we also had a farm. It was 120 acres, but it was very nice. But we were not really doing any farming. Well, we employed 2 congregational devotees to farm it for us. And so they did, and they would take the produce and sell it in the market. But basically the farm was just a place for the devotees to live. And they would go out and distribute books and do things like that. But the devotees were not involved in farming, because I don't know if you've done any farming. Farming is really quite something. And it's very physical. You've got to know what you're doing. So anyway, so Prabhupada was very pleased that they had a farm, and he wanted that they develop like a farming rural project and invite people and so on. And in this way, people can come and stay on our farms and live peacefully and be very productive, helping produce produce on the farms, and live happily and live peacefully. And he explained when he arrived there that the modern city society, godless society, keeps the living entity separated from Krishna. And in this way, it causes them distress. And he emphasized only Krishna consciousness can bring happiness. So now there, from July 30th to 31st, Srila Prabhupada was not well. He was there in New Mayapur, but he was not well. He had like a flu type of thing, something of that sort with mucus, and he explained, this is an interesting point, the importance of proper food preparation, that the traditional Indian diet, when prepared properly, this type of disease. In fact, most of the just sort of regular general diseases, if it's done properly, I don't know. Anyway, properly, we do some research about properly. I think it doesn't mean, South African alu beans curry, I don't know. Maybe, well, there's probably a place for it. And neither does it mean just like, Western supposed super health type diet. But it means, intelligent and sort of like strategic use of spicing and so on with different vegetables under different circumstances and so forth. Like one preparation which Prabhupada instructed Bhakti Charu Maharaj to make and showed him how to make was what they call, it's an Indian style of cooking called chachari, which means a lot of ghee or oil, and a lot of chili. And you cook, in this case it was potato, and you cook it, and then let it sort of sit there and cook until it's starting to stick, just a bit, and then you turn it over, and then you let it cook there, and you leave it for a short while, until it just starts sticking just very slightly, and you turn it over again, and you keep doing like that. This is chachari. Are you familiar? With chachari? You should be. I mean, it's not that hard to do. Yamuna's cookbook has a few chacharis. I used to do them years ago. Really nice. And a lot of ghee or a lot of oil and a lot of chili. So later, I'm diverging from what we're reading from here, but later on, Prabhupada demonstrated to Bhakti Charu Maharaj how to do it. And then Prabhupada was sick, like he is at this particular point, like a cold flu, that type of thing, and quite unpleasant. And he asked Bhakti Charu Maharaj, make that chachari for me. And you know the story, right? You probably know the story. That Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he thought, okay, I'll do it. But then noting that Prabhupada was not well, he reduced the amount of either ghee or oil to some degree, and he really reduced the chili. And Prabhupada, then he served it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada took one mouthful and called him in and said, what is this? You haven't done it as I showed you. Because, the chili, and it was red chili, counteracts, did like mucus and so on. So Prabhupada, really chastised him very strongly. I told you how to do, I showed you. And for the next couple of days, when the other guests would come, or even just other devotees would come in sometimes, Prabhupada would say, do you know what he did? And then explain what he did. Do you know what he did? And Bhakti Charu Maharaj felt really bad. But then, after a few days, like maybe 3 days, he explained to Prabhupada why he did it. And then Prabhupada apologized, actually. So, okay, anyway, so this is a very interesting point. And he emphasized fresh food over processed items. So, anyway, this is July 30th and 31st. Prabhupada received different letters from different senior devotees explaining different challenges and things that were happening. In Fiji, one devotee, Vasudev Das, who was like an older Indian man, Fijian Indian, a very wealthy man, and he got initiated by Prabhupada, but he was still quite independently minded, and he built a temple, or he wanted to build a temple of Krishna Kaliya, because Prabhupada would say that the Kaliya serpent, after Krishna defeated him and banished him from Vrindavan, he went to Fiji, is what Prabhupada said. And there apparently are like stories, old folk stories about some gigantic snake somewhere around Fiji. So he wanted to build a temple, a Krishna Kaliya temple. And Prabhupada wrote back, and Prabhupada told him, yes, very good. And Vasudev said, well, I will take charge. And Prabhupada said, well, we have a local GBC for Fiji, and he has an assistant. And then there is like another senior disciple there, that was Upendra. So the three of them must also be in their names must be there in the ownership documents. Prabhupada had said that before, but now Vasudev wrote and said, well, I'm going to put the ownership documents in my name. And Prabhupada was really unhappy. And Prabhupada wrote back to him on the 30th, it must have been, saying that, okay, if you want to do that, you cannot register it under the name ISKCON, and you cannot present it as an ISKCON temple. It's your private temple. This is a very interesting point, because, there are definitely devotees today who don't want to be under the ISKCON authority, but they want to use the ISKCON name, because the ISKCON name, particularly amongst Indian communities and Fiji, other than some sort of local ethnic people, it's like at least 50% of the population is Indians, and they've all heard of ISKCON, and it's very, very well known. So like this, in different places in Mauritius, the same thing. ISKCON is even better known than it is in Fiji. It's just extremely substantial. And so some devotees want to use the name ISKCON, but not be under ISKCON authority. And Prabhupada really not just didn't appreciate that, but he would not tolerate it. So he told them, all right, you, with your own money, build a temple, because he was some multi-millionaire type. But then it's your private temple. So that was there. Then one devotee, Shanandan Swami, had been in South India, and he met one of the leading members of the Madhvacharya line, who was very appreciative of ISKCON and helped to sort of present ISKCON to the people from the Madhvacharya line, because they're usually very sticky. They have eight temples, actually, in Udupi. Each one is run by a sannyasi. Each sannyasi was born in a Brahmin family and was given sannyas between the age of 8 and 10. Yeah. Not all of them sort of survived as sannyasis, but the majority. Yeah, so, but they're born in Brahmin families, and if you're not born in a Brahmin family, then there's no question, just no question, even of being initiated. Yeah. But this man was very appreciative and accepting ISKCON as being bona fide, authorized, and so on. And Hansadutta, who I also knew very well, he's late now, but he came to India with a number of buses from Germany, not knowing that if you bring a vehicle into India, at least in those days, I don't know about now, you got to pay like 200% duty on the value. At least it's not like Singapore, where now you have to pay like 300%. Yeah, so now they came in, they got in, but now they had to pay so much money, or else they got to take the vehicles out. And the whole idea was to have a big traveling program in India. So Prabhupada wrote to him about the situation then. Then the library party devotees, distributing books to libraries and universities, they sent a report of their activities, and they were in Canada, and they're having great success selling sets of Prabhupada's books to universities and to like public libraries. So then the next day, the 31st, Prabhupada met with the manager of the Gurukul in New Mayapur there in France, and with Yogeshwar Prabhu. And Prabhupada outlined his vision for Krishna conscious education as follows. The primary goal: teach the children to become 100% obedient to the spiritual master. Primary goal. And then focus on character, behavior, and knowledge of Krishna consciousness, and don't worry so much about the usual academic subjects. Prabhupada said, we do not need to produce scholars, materialistic scholars. And the boys and girls should be separated, like educated separately in separate rooms. And the girls particularly should learn the 64 arts that Radharani is expert in. Like, for example, making garlands is one of the 64 arts, and then cooking is, well, there's a couple or a few even to do with cooking. But I could just mention, whoever made the garland for Srila Prabhupada, I had to sort of force it over his head. Otherwise it would have to just sit on his head, because it didn't just, just go on like that. So anyway, someone who's dealing with garlands should bring that to the attention of the garland makers. So yeah, the girls, Prabhupada didn't really want the girls to get into like the regular academic education practically at all, at least just very little, even the boys. Just learn language and learn mathematics. So, you can calculate things like that, and so you can communicate nicely. And so the girls should learn the 64 arts. They're listed out actually in Brahma Samhita. I forget the verse number, maybe 34 or 30 or something like that. And the boys should learn to to address all women as mother, even if the woman is younger than them. Then Prabhupada rejected teaching biology, chemistry, and other material sciences. He rejected them as a waste of time and emphasized practical knowledge, a certain amount of geography for traveling around, and then like basic mathematics. And medical knowledge should only be learned if someone already has some real inclination towards it, and then it can be used in devotional service. And philosophically, Prabhupada said, just give them positive engagement in devotional service, then material desires will automatically become no. If you simply say no, they will rebel. So give them positive engagement in devotional service so they're happy, and then material desires will automatically become no. And don't just say no just like that. And so while he was there, he was advocating, promoting simple living and high thinking, village living, growing grains, vegetables, keeping cows for milk, living peacefully away from the sinful city life, avoiding factory work, and the modern urban, quote unquote, what he called horrible civilization. And he wanted the devotees to create multiple centers like this across Europe. Then Prabhupada addressed the claimed moon landing. He ridiculed the scientists' claims, calling them rascals. In English, the word rascal is used in just everyday society, but more often than not, it's just used for mischievous children. The word rascal. I don't know in the Hindu community, but in my community, that's all it was used for. So it sounds funny to call an adult a rascal, but actually, in the use of the word in India, if someone's called a rascal, it's a very heavy criticism. It's like calling him, a dirty ... something really like aggressive. Yeah. Yes, okay. And he pointed out the moon is described in scripture as a pleasing planet for pious souls and not just a desert. So, everything belongs to Krishna. As long as he likes, we'll stay in a place. But if Krishna says go away, we'll go away. Yes. So then, from August the 1st to the 5th, Prabhupada, every day, he established a pattern of evening walks and outdoor darshans where between 80 and 300 devotees would gather. And he would sit under the trees, lead or participate in kirtan, give short philosophical talks, and then take questions from the devotees. And he would often emphasize the simplicity and completeness of Mandana Bhagavad Bhakto. That's Bhagavad Gita 1865. And also 9:34. The verse appears twice with slight variations in a few of the words. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and glorify me. In this way you'll come to me without fail. I promise this. Yes. So, key philosophical points. Just worship Krishna and think of him. It requires no special conditions. He supplies everything for those who worship him. And he repeated that, yogic shemam vaham yaham. For someone who's worshipping me always, that I provide anything he lacks and I preserve what he has. And Prabhupada would make the point that love is our most constitutional need, but it must be directed towards Krishna. Otherwise, if we don't love Krishna, material desires will fill the gap. And mental speculation is useless. Practical devotional service is what is needed. And he explained that illicit sex life is Maya's trap. People know the consequences of that, but cannot tolerate the quote-unquote itching sensation. And he emphasized proper marriage and raising children as Krishna-conscious devotees, and no abortion, and not just abandoning the children or the family. And different people came to visit him. One Christian scholar, and he described himself as a Christian Advaitavadi. Does that make sense? A Christian impersonalist. Advaita means, well, Dvaita means two, Advaita means not two, just one. So the Christian impersonalist and the Jnani. So Prabhupada preached him and emphasized that true Jnana leads to bhakti. And he explained the impersonalists lack complete knowledge. He would quote, Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanam Mam Prapadante, that after many births, a truly knowledgeable person, including impersonalists, will surrender to Krishna. And he stressed that devotees must be both knowledgeable, they must have a good understanding, and they must also be realized. Then a naval commander came to visit Prabhupada, and the family had taken up chanting and following the regulative principles. Bruno, a man called Bruno, who I think is still our printer in Italy, he came, and this is 1976. I'm not actually sure if he's still our printer, but he was for many, many years our printer, printing our books in Italian and French and Spanish like that. So he came and had a very nice meeting with Prabhupada. Prabhupada explained that the truth is one, and it's like reaching the top floor of the building. Different people are at different stages, but the destination is the same. But if we serve Krishna, he gives us an immediate lift to the top floor through surrender. Yeah, and Prabhupada talked about prasadam distribution. Forcing people to eat prasadam is like forcing medicine on a horse for its own good. Then on August the 6th, there was an initiation ceremony. It was a Ekadasi. So, in the morning, Prabhupada heard what was what's called here a significant incident. Prabhupada heard this one devotee, Prithviputra Swami, who is long gone from ISKCON. So Prabhupada heard him chanting, Bhaja Hare Krishna, instead of just Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada angrily called him and strongly warned never to add to the Mahamantra, which is complete in itself. And he feared that this was a contamination coming from non-ISKCON sources in Vrindavan. And, it's not the only one. There was also, it was the practice when I was there to chant Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasri Gaura. But Srila Prabhupada in 74, Prabhupada sent a communication to all temples, bulletin, that stop this Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Because Bhaja, anyway, and just use Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, which is what we do. But Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya means we're specifically addressing Lord Chaitanya as an avatar. But actually Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of a devotee. So it's like a rasa. It's the wrong mood to treat him so much and constantly, regularly as the Supreme Lord, but rather just glorify him, Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Yeah, so anyway, Vrindavan, it's what would you call it? A spiritual circus? Or it's something like that. And you get every single idea about, what people think is Krishna conscious, but which may not be. Every single idea that you can think of, and many that you never heard about, never dreamed of, but so many wrong ideas. It is amazing, actually. So, right. So then on that August the 6th, Krishna and Balarama are installed in New Mayapur, 4 feet tall. Balarama in white marble, Krishna in black, not marble actually, but black stone. They were installed. And Prabhupada gave between 40 and 50 initiations. Okay, thank you. 40 or 50 devotees were initiated, and Guru Garanga Prabhu, who is American, but he was living in Switzerland at the time. He was translating the instructions into 5 languages. How many languages could we translate them into? 1. Maybe 1.5. Yes, so okay, Haribol. So much for that. Okay. Then Sumati Muraji, from the shipping company, she let Prabhupada sail from Calcutta right through to New York free of charge. She wrote to Prabhupada. Because she was Gujarati, or anyway, whatever, in those terms, but she was a follower of Vallabhacharya. probably means Gujarati. And she expressed criticism, or she expressed concern about how Lord Chaitanya expressed criticism of Vallabhacharya. If you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see there's at least a section, a chapter or maybe two or something, where his Vallabhacharya's interactions with Lord Chaitanya are described in quite some detail, and it's made very clear that Lord Chaitanya did not really think that Vallabhacharya was, such an advanced devotee. So, anyway, she expressed concerns about those things. And Srila Prabhupada, it's not actually mentioned here, but, more or less. Prabhupada said that, devotees discuss points of scripture, and when they do that, they may not use the usual etiquette, but they just speak what they feel, and therefore it may come out like it's criticism, but it's not really like that. It's not like real criticism, like I think, you should just be rejected. It's just a different point of view, so let's not worry about it too much. And in this way, Prabhupada pacified Sumati Muraji. Then, throughout the stay, Harikesh was cooking for Prabhupada. And Prabhupada did not like the cooking. He said, Harikesh is cooking 90% for himself, the way he likes things. So, during quiet moments, Prabhupada reflected on his struggles pre-ISKCON, from through the 50s and the very early 60s. Yeah. And from 54 to 66, which is about 12 years. And when Prabhupada talked about how he struggled for that time, Prabhupada said 12 years means one yuga. You may remember that term is used 12 years or more when Prabhupada translates Yugayatam Nation, the 7th verse of Shikshastakam. The term is yuga, which, might easily be taken to mean millions of years, but he translated it as 12 years or more. And he extensively discussed the British rule of India, how the culture of India was destroyed, the collapse of Brahminical culture. He compared Western and Eastern civilizations. He discussed the recklessness of modern society, that everyone in modern society is like prodigal sons of God. Means prodigal son is a classic old story. Means a son who just abandoned his parents and abandoned his family and just went off to do his own thing. But when he's trying to do his own thing, he really struggled. And eventually he returned to the family. So like this, the Westerners, they're struggling like that, separate from Krishna. But if we preach nicely, then they may come back to Krishna. And he discussed marriage and family life in the Indian tradition as opposed to the Western tradition. Then, on August 7th, Prabhupada left for Tehran, which is Iran, kind of, I don't know, extraordinary place. But he went there and spent some time there, but that's as far as I got. I only know there's 59 pages. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. And any comment, question, any point you would like to raise? We don't have our usual